Apparently this is Queen Victoria's train, a royal train. So it's according to the guidebook. This is Queen Victoria's carriage. So I get to take a peek inside here, but the Queen and her entourage would be riding in these carriages. And if you notice, the width of this train here is not that wide compared to that train over there. That's because as engines got more powerful and the technology developed, they pushed out the width of the tracks and the size of the engines increased. So this actually is quite an interesting little thing to see. And the engine is named Gladstone, which I think is after the Prime Minister's. This rail car here belongs to Queen Mary, but interesting, and she had it changed over, but what I want to show you right here, if you can see it, that's an electrical panel. So when she had this reworked, she had all modern amenities and electricity put in, and then that's the control panel for a lot of that stuff, and everything is done in this beautiful rich, I think it's mahogany wood or oak, polished up. But the whole thing just gleams Edwardian, I think. And so let's just take a quick peek at the next one. This next train car, different from that one. And I'll just give you a quick glance into it. It's very similar to the other one, so this is how posh it was. So I could take hours of footage here, but I'm not going to, so I'll cut it off right here. Okay, this is pretty amazing. So this is the third class, not first class, not second. This is the third class dining car on the route from London to Scotland, per the thing right here. And this is the third class sleeping carriage, which, I mean, this looks typical of something you would see out of the Sherlock Holmes movies, but this is really interesting to seeing this firsthand. So I'm wondering what the second and first class looks like. And a little cross note, this is the two rail trains are over there, and they got a little cafe set up here in the middle. Of course, it makes it much more difficult to make wide shots of what these these cars look like. So this is actually really cool. Quick little interesting thing here. So there is no second class, I guess. There's either first class or third class. It was interesting, they put the two first class cars here in the middle. Of course, it's also an interesting thing is you have exit entrancing on the train on the side, not from the front to the back. Once again, this is a much more narrow carriage from the earlier days of rail travel. But you can see in here, here's how the third class people would live, along with their bottles or whatever. And then over here, you can see how the first class people lived. But I think this also has a little bit to do with railroad safety, meaning if there was any sort of accident here, right? Think about it, accident. Here, third class, first class, traveling post office. But if there was an accident where two trains crunched together, this is a crumple zone right there, right? So the people in third class, they get whacked first, and people in first class are in the middle, where it's relatively much more safe, much more secure in the very center part of the carriage. So this is actually very, very fascinating. I'm rapidly getting carriaged out here, but this actually has a third, first, and second class seating arrangement. So here you have third class here with a shared lavatory here, one more third class. So you have the toilet right there everybody can use. And then you have first class here. And you notice the lavatory is about the same size, but the size of the cabin is much greater. Take a quick peek inside there. And once again, you enter from the side here. I think I'm wrong, but I think at a certain point they came up with a standard gauge. So most of these the tracks below are a certain size, just that the width and the height of the trains increase somewhat over time. And over here, once again, more of the first class. And you see they're doing some conservation, but this stuff all gets worn out and the fabric does break down over time. And you can see second class. So second class is a little bit wider than third class, but a little bit narrower than first. Of course, first, everybody had their own chair. So you weren't sharing a bunch of seats with a bunch of people. And very fascinating. So let's pop around the other side and see what we can see. Okay, I was wondering what this building was for, because it didn't feel like a train station. This is actually a goods station. So you can imagine all the various trains or the cars coming into this location and things being unloaded and offloaded. That explains these high concrete platforms in the middle between the trains, therefore allowing somebody with a forklift or a hand truck or something to unload and offload goods and stuff. And the little placard back there says, imagine the sights and smells of this location, of all sorts of things coming in and out of this building up to the 1970s. So it's pretty amazing. Here we are in the Great Hall. Amazing. Another gift shop here, and some small stuff up there as well. So I'm making pretty good time getting through this place, but we'll see. I'm definitely coming back here tomorrow to hit whatever I missed, but it does remind me of the California Railroad Museum in terms of its scope, its size, and how things are laid out. But I have yet to see anything about really interactive exhibits talking about the construction and building the railroads yet. Perhaps that's a little further on. And it says this is an engine shed, which totally makes sense, where all the engines would be brought in, worked on, cleaned up, and stuff done to them. Okay, this is a really good part of the exhibit space, is this cutaway of a steam engine. So to begin with, this is the boiler right here, and you can see where they painted blue where the water line would be, and their internal supports and structures. And I'm surprised there's not more baffling in here to kind of slow the movement of water back and forth. And I'm not sure what this mechanism is here for, but then here is where all the coal was stored. All that was brought down here to the firebox. Now at this point I want to show you, there's a break right here between the tender and the engine. So this allows for articulation as the train goes down the track. And tracks had a maximum curvature to them to allow trains to transit them as they did their work. So then you can see the firebox, and then here you can see the firebox itself and how it works. Now, the interesting thing is all these bolts right here. All these bolts are called stay bolts, I believe. And I know in American engines, some of these actually, I think they're hollow. I believe so, because that way, when the stay bolts breaks, you get water coming out, right? That way, you know, you have to potentially service the engine, take that bolt out, replace it. So you can see all the firebox action going in here, and you can see where all the heat and smoke go out towards the front of the engine. And you can see where all the water is. I'm believing the blue is the water, and the light blue is probably steam, and the orange and the yellow is the combustion chamber here. This is really cool. And then you have the driving engines here, and then you can see all the tubes in the boiler as it's going through here in this part. And you can see the water level and the steam level coming out. And I'm not sure if this has a supercharger or not, where it takes it from wet steam to dry steam. I don't think so. And then so you can see it come out, all the steam coming out and coming down to here. Now, this is the question that I had earlier for myself. Now, you may say, John, what is this? This is actually a double expansion steam engine. All right, what that means is when the steam initially comes into this piston here, it drives this cylinder forward. But as it's driving this cylinder forward, at the same time, the steam that was in this piston is therefore released into this piston here, which drives this piston backwards. So you have this dual action going on here. So once this cycle is complete, when this steam fully fills up, this cylinder now is empty. Then this steam comes into this cylinder, which this cylinder is now over here, and it pushes it back. So what that does is it's a double expansion steam engine, which gives you a higher level of efficiency in using steam in order to get you where you need to go. And so I think after everything was all said and done, going back and forth here, I think it looks like steam comes in here, goes down here, does its job here, and then it's returned up here to a return part, and then either it exits the engine or it gets recondensed. I think my bet is it just gets released in with the smoke that goes up into the firebox and out the stack. But you can see just how many tubes they have in this sucker just to create enough steam. And matter of fact, I think the pink there, that pink steam, is what comes down to here. And the blue, I'm not sure. And maybe the white goes back in there and goes back through the system to be heated again. But this shows you kind of an idea of how the steam engine works. One last thing here. So, take a peek. Nope, there's no articulation up here, but a lot of times, maybe there is. There might be some articulation in the front part of this engine here, because once again, to get around the curves, you can't just build an engine as long as you want. And here's the massive driving wheels. Okay, I'm underneath one of these engines, but here's the thing really interesting. So notice all the articulation on the underside here. And I'm gonna go outside around the corner to see if it continues, but I'm not sure if this makes a lot of logical sense, because the only way you can ever lubricate this or oil this is down here. I mean, how do you crawl underneath this to oil all these moving parts unless the engine is used, taken out of service, and then placed here to be taken care of? But this is very interesting, very fascinating. So let's go outside, up the steps and around the corner, and see if there's actually any articulation on the outside, or moving piston rods. Yep. Hey there. So here we're on the outside, and there's no articulation, so there's no driving mechanisms out here. There's some here. So it's very interesting. They have both sets. All this stuff would definitely be oiled and lubricated, but still, to me, that seems like an awful lot of moving parts to lubricate. And if it's a lot of them on the inside, that to me is it's a compact design, but maybe very inefficient too. So this was who again? Yeah, this is the peak of his design work. But let you sit there and read it. But that's what I actually really neat.